Hello friends, welcome to Code Sutra. In this video, I will be discussing about LeetCode problem number 1675, minimize the deviation in an array. In this problem, we are given an array, for example, this particular array. And what is deviation? It is the difference between the maximum element and the minimum element. What is the deviation now? The deviation is 19, but we have to reduce this deviation. How can we reduce this deviation? We can perform two operations. One is, you can pick up any odd element and you can increase the odd element, that is multiplying it by 2. For example, this 1 can be multiplied by 2 and this can be converted to 2. Again, you can pick up this 3 and you can multiply it by 2. That is one approach. The second one is, you can pick up any even element and divide it by 2. For example, 20 becomes 10, and again, since it is an even, again you can perform the operation. So let's dive into the intuition of the problem and the approach. What's the intuition? The intuition is, say here it was 1, right? Now we increased it to 2. So can this 2 be increased further? No, right? Why it can't be increased? Because any odd number, once it is multiplied by an even number, it will become an even number and you no longer can increase. For example, if this is the given array, can you increase this any element of this given array? No, right? Why? Because all the elements in this array are even. For example, if we multiply the odd elements of this array by 2, now can you increase any element in the array? No, right? So this will be our maximum possible value of any element in the array. So now none of the elements in this particular array can have a value greater than this. So we have solved half of the problem. That is, any value, we now know the maximum value of that. What is the second step we have to do? The second step we have to do is to reduce the maximum value, right? So the idea is to minimize the gap between the maximum and the minimum value. Now we have increased the minimum values. Now the other option is we have to reduce the maximum value. So how do we do that? We pick up the maximum element in an array and we divide it by 2. Again, what is the maximum element of this array? Again, it is 10 and we will divide it by 2. Now, can we go any further? No, right? Because this is an odd number and we cannot divide it further by 2. See here, we though have an even number, we don't want to care about that. Why? Because our maximum element cannot be divided by 2. So what is the answer in this case? The answer is 2. So can we just follow this procedure and return the answer? That is, we will do all the steps, then finally we will return the difference between the maximum element and the minimum element. Can we do that? No, right? Why we can't do that? I will show you with an example. For example, this is 3 and this is 5. We have multiplied both of them by 2. That is, we got 6 and we got 10. Now let's go on to do it. What is 10 by 2? 10 by 2 will be 5. Again, what is 6 by 2? 6 by 2 is 3. Finally, what is the answer? The answer is 2. But let's go on very carefully. We had 6 and 10 and 10 actually become 5. Now observe very carefully. It is 6 and 5. And what is the answer now? The answer is 1. Why? Because this is the minimum possible value that we can get. Right? So the idea is that every step that we are dividing the number by 2, we also have to keep track of the answer. Keep track of the answer. For example, 1 in this case. What do? We keep track of the answer. Initially it was 4. Now that we have 1, which is actually lesser than 4, we will be updating our answer. So that is the additional step that we'll be doing. And one more thing. See, at every point we are finding the maximum value and we are divided it by 2. So what is the data structure that we will be using here? The data structure that we have to use is a maximum heap or a priority queue. Why? Because it's very easy, or it just takes constant time or O of 1 to get the maximum element from a heap. So that is what we will be doing. We will be using a max heap to accompany this. Okay, now let's discuss the step-by-step approach. The first step is we will add all the elements in the priority queue. But before adding that, remember we have to convert all the elements into its maximum possible value. That is, if it is an even number, we can add it directly, or else we will multiply it by 2 and then we will add it. Also, we have to keep track of the minimum elements while adding. Because this is a max heap, we cannot go and directly get the minimum value. So we need to keep track of the minimum value ourselves. What is the third step that we'll be doing? While the maximum element is even, we will divide it by 2. That is what we were doing here, right? While the maximum element is divided by 2, divisible by 2, we were dividing it by 2, but don't forget, you have to again add it back to the priority queue. That is what we are doing. But with addition to that, we also keep track of the difference between the now maximum element and the minimum element at every point. And also we have to update the minimum value at every point. Finally, we will return the answer. So let me take you through the code. So before taking you through the code, please do subscribe to our channel. We do here discuss the patterns and not just the problems. For example, if you have carefully listened to this problem and if you are aware of the maximum and min heap, these are the problems, you can go and solve it straight away. Actually, these are two of them are hard level problems and 2 of them are medium level problems, but you have understood the concept of minimum and max heap. You can directly go this and solve this problem. What is the concept? The concept is very simple. At every point we want to find the maximum value, or at every point what we are trying to do is sort the array, right? So if you know this particular pattern, it is very easy to solve these 4 problems. Let me dive into the code. What we are doing is we are initializing a priority queue. Why collections.reverse order? Because this is a max heap. Okay, maximum priority queue, that will give you the maximum element. Now we are adding all the elements into the priority queue one by one. That is, if it's an odd number, we will multiply by 2 and we will add it. And we are keeping track of the minimum elements at every point. Then once you are done with this, what we do, we just pick the maximum element and we see if it is divisible by 2 or not. For example, here this became 5, right? We no longer can divide it any further. This also became 5. So we no longer can go below this. So that is what we are trying to do. Until and unless the maximum element is divisible by 2, we are going through the while loop and we are polling it, and we are again adding top by 2 back to the priority queue, but we also keep track of the answer and the minimum possible values. Finally, we will be returning the answer. Thank you for watching the video. Please do like, share and subscribe.